Welcome, shiverlings, to my domain. I, of course, am Pagan, your resident druid horrormancer and mistress of the macabre. Tonight, I have a collection of letters sent in by you, my faithful flock of horror lovers, detailing your own encounters with the strange, the unexplained, and the downright spooky. If you have an experience to share, instructions for how to do that are in the description box below. It's very easy. All you do is send me an email. If you enjoy these types of videos, we have a whole playlist of them for you to binge to your heart's delight. And if you're a lover of all things spooky, consider joining the horror harem by pressing that subscribe button down below. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I think we can do that, can't we? Well then, without further ado, let's get into the letters. The Wandering Child by Whimsical Wombat. My dearest friend, whom I've known since childhood, is Mormon. Are they? I could have sworn I had a discussion with someone fairly recently, who was what is like commonly known as a Mormon. Now, I think they said they don't like to be called Mormon anymore, right? Like, I think, isn't there another term? Or maybe they just like to be called like a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints. I think, I don't know, I genuinely remember like someone telling me recently that they're not called Mormons anymore, they don't like it. So if that's the case, please don't come for me. I didn't write this letter. If that's the case, I didn't write this letter. I am conscious of it. I don't think that people like that term anymore, but I'm not certain. No, that isn't the scary part. I mean, I'm glad you clarified, because I've heard some tales. I have heard some tales coming out of Utah that are pretty concerning, pretty scary. She was away on a mission, as those of said religion often do upon a certain age range. She was sent across the United States during her travels, but primarily ended up in Georgia. Yeah, I know that is an LDS thing, and a lot of other like Christian sects as well. They tend to go out on like missions when they're like in their later teens, early 20s. And they send them to like other parts of the country to like be evangelical and stuff like that. Now, during one of the excursions that she and the girls of her group were out on, they had passed by a cemetery earlier that day. Nothing scary there, it's the South, and Civil War history is all over. The girls went about their day, and as it was starting to get late, they once again passed by the cemetery. At this point, the sun was starting to go down, dusk was setting in, and a general air of spookiness set in along with it. As they crossed the road past the cemetery, one of the girls in said group stopped and said hello to a little boy who seemed to be alone waiting on the sidewalk. The group looked around for the boy's parents or minders, but could not find anyone. Kudos to these girls for like sticking around trying to figure out what's happening. And being very good about, in general, just, you know, hey, we found this little boy, let's make sure, you know, he's not lost, he's not abandoned, he's not, you know, a runaway, nothing bad happens to him. Kudos to them. Really appreciate that. They sat with him for about 10 minutes before he suddenly turned and ran down the sidewalk and into the cemetery. Listen. If someone just gets up, especially a small child, if they just suddenly get up and bolt into a cemetery at night, please tell me they didn't follow him. Please tell me they didn't follow him into the cemetery. Please, I need to hear that they did not follow. Oh, gosh. Oh, they followed him into the cemetery, didn't they? Didn't they? Oh, no. Two of the group went after him. Yep, of course they did. Of course they did. No. Listen, don't follow things into a cemetery at night. I don't know what rule number we're on. I think this might be rule number 12. Rule number 12. Don't follow things into cemeteries at night. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. I don't care if it's a cat. I don't care if it's a wounded dog. I don't care if it's a little child. I don't care if it's an adult and they look like they're bleeding and they might need help or assistance. Don't follow things into cemeteries at night. Rule number 12. Don't do it. 2 of the group went after him, including my friend. But as they made it to the entrance of the cemetery, there was not a person in sight. Frantic, they searched for about 15 minutes before they gave up and returned to the group. So they were just out wandering around the cemetery at night for 15 minutes after following a ghost child into the cemetery? Not great. Do they want to get cursed? Are they cursed? Are they haunted? I feel like 2 of them might be so haunted. That is how you get haunted. That is how you get haunted. I'm glad they didn't get disappeared in the cemetery at night and they made it out okay. But what the heck? What the heck? To this day, my friend, who has not once believed in ghosts for as long as I've known her, swears up and down that this little boy just vanished into the cemetery. I think that little boy is buried in the cemetery. I think he's buried in the cemetery. I think that was a ghost you found there, friendos. Oh, you think that was a ghost you found there, friendos? Yeah. Yeah, I do. But thank you, Whimsical Wombat, for sending in that story. I know it wasn't your story, so you clearly kidnapped it from your friend, which I appreciate. Always down for those kidnap your friends ghost stories. Send them to me. Send them? Send them. Yes, not sell them. I'm not buying them. I don't buy them. But send them to me. I'd love to react to them. Kidnap all your friends' stories. It's wonderful. Thank you so much for sending that one in. Thank you. Road trip. Another one sent in by Tiny Gay, formerly known as Tiny Gay Mod. We love the small. We love our favourite small pie. Thank you for a second story. Really appreciate it. Let's go. I was driving towards the LA area in California on one of my few trips out that way, and I encountered something in the desert that to this day gives me the creeps. Oh gosh, I think I know which story this is because I once told a story about my own trip through the desert, and I believe Tiny told me about her own little story that she had that was very similar to that. I think I know what story this is. It was about 2 a.m. and due to a major accident, I was rerouted to a very dark, very isolated and small 2-lane road. Now, this in itself was a little creepy, but I paid it no mind. Yeah, you know, when it's late and you get detoured to a route that you don't really know, it's always a little bit creepy, especially if it's, you know, a small road, like a backroads road that you've never been down before. It's always just spooky. However, it was when I made it to an empty desert area that things began to get even spookier. Every now and then, I would see movement out in the desert. A large shadow out in the distance that appeared to be keeping pace with my car. For about 20 minutes, this seemed to go on. My music would cut in and out. No other vehicles were around me for miles, yet randomly I could see bright yellow headlights out of the passenger side, just on the edge of sight. Yep, nope, don't like that. Don't like that. There's a mysterious figure out in the desert, wandering, running by your car, keeping pace with your car. There's no other cars around, and you're seeing headlights over on the side. I could never see what was following me, but once I made it back to the main highway, that feeling that I was being stalked by some sort of predator went away immediately. Oh yeah, no, don't like that. As soon as you get out of the desert area and back onto the main highway, like, you're no longer being followed by this. So it was definitely just like that one distinct area. Not cool. Not fun. All the dislike. Later, during that same trip on my way back home, I had a near head-on collision around midnight. Was it a coincidence, or was there genuinely something out there that may have caused me to nearly die? What I want to know is, when you had that, you nearly had that head-on collision, was that like on the same road? Was it on like the same detour on your way back? You know, because I think you had said you started out about 2 a.m. that day when you went through, and then you went wherever you went, and you probably like spent the day there, slept, whatever. So then you're coming back at about midnight, a different day, possibly the next day, possibly a couple of days later, I don't know. And then you nearly get into a head-on collision. What I want to know is, was it in that same area as you're being chased by whatever this was, and you were seeing those headlights? Because that would be really, really interesting to know. That is super freaky. Thank you. Thank you for sending that in. Oh my hecking gosh. The Ghosts of Gladstone Villa, sent in by Andrew Dexter. Now, this one is really interesting for me, and I cannot wait to read this. And I say this because I put out a tweet on Twitter asking people to send in their ghost stories. And someone had responded to my tweet and said, hey, you should check out the Ghosts of Gladstone Villa. You should look into this. It's really interesting. And I was like, oh, I'm actually really familiar with this one, because just a couple of days prior, I had been reading on Reddit about the Ghosts of Gladstone Villa. I had been reading a Reddit thread all about it, just like a couple of days later. And then I want to say it was maybe an hour later, I got a comment on YouTube from the same person. Saying, hey, I just sent you an email about the Ghosts of Gladstone Villa. And I opened up the email, and that's when I realized, holy crap, the person who had messaged me originally on Twitter and then on YouTube and then subsequently sent me the email is actually a member of that family that lived at Gladstone Villa that I had just been reading about on Reddit a couple of days ago. It was just one of those kismet moments, and I thought that was so, so cool. Absolutely amazing. I want to say a huge thank you to Andrew Dexter for sending in this email to me. This is brilliant. It's so cool that that happened. Cannot wait to read your letter. Gladstone Villa was a large 3-story property that loomed ominously over the other houses in the street of Cardiff Road in the former mining town of Bargoed, which was part of the Romney Valley in mid-Glamorgan, just 17 miles from Cardiff and 8 miles north of Caerphilly. The border changed, and now it's part of the Caerphilly County Borough of the South Wales Valley. Once a sparse rural village that goes back to medieval times, to the age of saints and one man. This was Catwick, known as Catwick the Wise. He was a pious man who was elected abbot and was responsible for over 36 monasteries in southeast Wales. Bargoed was a farming area that grew into a much larger, substantial marketing village where the priests and the monks would toil in the fields for produce, then prayer. The years came to pass, and the Bargoed Colliery opened in 1903, creating jobs for the locals, and people far and wide travelled to Bargoed for work. Houses and shops were built, and now over 100 years later, but 2 streets were built over what remains of the old monastery. This was Henry Street and Baldwin Street. I just have to say, I really appreciate that you started off your email with like some background of the area and stuff like that. Really helps kind of paint a picture, set a scene, let us know, like, okay, so this was an area, there's this guy, he was really pious, he was the abbot. This was, a really big kind of holy place. And now, over 100 years later, You know, a lot of things have been built over, and there were two streets that were built over what remains of the old monastery, being Henry Street and Baldwin Street. So we can kind of get an idea of what happened here, what's going to be going on. So I really appreciate that you started off this way. This is a great way to do it. Love the background details. My family consisted of my mother, Caroline, and my maternal grandparents, William and Rita Higgs, and my grandfather, William. He was known as Bill to his family and friends. He worked at Bargoed Colliery in the 1950s. My family moved to Gladstone Villa sometime in 1960 from Francis Street. It was a rough area and were commonly known as Jug and Bottle Street, as the drunks would come out of the pubs on the weekends after a hard week down in the mines, and trouble would kick off, leaving broken glasses on the road and pavements. Yeah, especially like back in that time, if you lived near a pub or near a bar or something like that, people would get really rowdy, especially right around closing time, you know, at night. Not great. But, you know, it is what it is. But I do really like the details. I do like these here. My mother, Caroline, was just 10 years old at the time, and this was no place to bring up a child, especially after a murder took place in 1960. What? A murder took place here in 1960. 38-year-old Sidney Aubrey Price murdered his daughter with an axe. You can Google it. I mean, obviously, I'm going to have to Google this when we're done. Oh my gosh. So there's just an axe murder. A legitimate axe murderer in 1960. All right, we're going to have to look this up. We're going to have to look this up later. I'm definitely going to. Price was an unemployed miner and was declared insane. What? This is like a whole story onto itself. All right, so your family's living here. I'm assuming on Francis Street is where this like murder took place. That's kind of what I'm getting, right? Like you're living on Francis Street. It's kind of a rough and tumble place. This guy Price, an unemployed miner, murdered his daughter with an axe. He was declared insane. Your family decided, yeah, no, we're going to move. We're going to get out of here. And so they decide to move in to Gladstone Villa. That's my understanding of the timeline that went on here. Please feel free to let me know if I have that wrong. My family lived relatively normal lives at Gladstone Villa to begin with. My mum left school in 1965 and got a job at the bakehouse at Baldwin Street. She was a day shift regular. You said that your mum was 10 years old at the time when the family moved into Gladstone Villa in 1960. So if it's 1965, she's 15. So she leaves school at 15 to go get a job in a bakehouse. All right. Okay. That's a little sad for her. I'm sorry that she had to do that. This is where she met my father, Douglas Dexter. He was night shift and they dated 3 years before getting married in April of 1968. All right. So they got married like the moment she turned 18. She got married like the moment they turned 18. I don't know how much older your father was at the time. I don't want to know. Please don't tell me. I don't want to have feelings about it. Don't want to have feelings about it. But that said, things like that, especially back then, it was incredibly common. You know, you meet a couple of years before you're 18. Maybe he was like 17 or 16 or something like that, and they date for a few years, and then now they're both 18. They immediately get married. Okay, that's what I'm going with. Okay, that's what I'm going with. Rumors were abound that the bakery in Baldwin Street was haunted. It was said by a couple of people that there was a presence in the flower room upstairs, and sometime later, a monk with a white hood was seen. My mother, Caroline, did not believe any of it because she saw nothing weird at all. Mum and Dad didn't get a place of their own. They stayed with my grandparents, Bill and Rita, at Gladstone Villa. All right, so they didn't move out, get their own apartment, nothing like that. They stayed living with Mum and Dad. Respectable. Respectable, nothing wrong with that. Things are fine, and they lived normally. My dad told my mum that she was pregnant before she even knew. Sure enough, I was born in August 1969. That's awesome. That is actually really cool. Your dad is the one who told your mum, like, hey, you're pregnant. And your dad was right, like, before your mom even knew. I wonder, like, what made him say that. I've heard a couple of people, there's a couple of, like, stories in my family, too, where other people have told the pregnant person, like, hey, you're pregnant, before they even knew themselves. But I just find it really funny that your dad goes to mom and is like, hey, guess what? You're going to have a baby. And she's probably like, what? No. And then you're just like, sure enough, I was born in August 1969. I love that. It's such a fun little detail. It's such a fun little detail. Thank you so much. It started in the attic. Nothing odd happened until soon after I was born. Wait. So everything weird that started happening at Gladstone Villa started happening after you were born. Are you cursed? Are you a cursed baby? Are you a cursed child? Were your parents performing weird rituals while they were pregnant with you? What's going on? I mean, I guess also maybe just having a baby around might have stirred things up. Who knows? Who knows? We're going to read on. But all right. My family were downstairs when suddenly they heard a noise, like someone jumping from the attic and onto the landing. Naturally, thinking someone was trying to break in, the family went upstairs to see. They saw nobody there, but the hatch to the attic was open. This is when you take the baby downstairs, everybody gets out of the house, and you phone the police. You have the police come round, and you have them check the house and the attic to see who the fuck broke in. Right? Who the fuck broke in? Who's living in the walls? What's going on here? Tell me you had the police round. Tell me your family had the police round. Please. I need to know that you have that healthy sense of paranoia. Maybe not you, because I assume you were a baby at the time. But tell me your family had a healthy sense of paranoia and phoned the police. I'm assuming someone went up there to look. It should have been the police, but you didn't mention the police. I'm assuming one of your family members just went up there to look and see if anyone was out there, and they found no one. Dislike. I think we need to expand rule number 12. No, we'll just make it rule number 13. We'll just make it rule number 13. Don't go into the attic. Don't go into the attic. Don't do it. No. It's not a good thing to do. They thought no more about it. But then they heard disturbances in the bedroom. Really? You just hear this random sound coming from the attic, like someone's trying to take your baby, and you just think no more about it until you start hearing footsteps in the bedroom? Yeah? That's healthy sense of paranoia, people. Healthy sense of paranoia. Where is it? For all you know, there could be somebody living in the walls or living in the attic of Gladstone Villa, trying to steal your heckin' baby. Ever heard of the Lindbergh baby? Could be your baby. What are you doing? Footsteps were heard on a daily basis. It was so bad that a family member had to get me out of the master bedroom, which incidentally was my parents' room, or my grandparents' room. Now, I'm a little confused here. Were you still a baby when these footsteps were going on? Like, were you like a little kid? Were you in a crib? You were in the master bedroom. Was your bed in there? Were you just like in there and they heard these footsteps and someone came to get you? I need to know. I need to know. I need this information. I really do. By now, the family knew that something was wrong. And it was my grandmother Rita who said, I think we have a ghost. I mean, it does make sense. It does make sense. You know, you're hearing all of these weird noises, you're getting these footsteps. It makes sense. But I definitely would have still phoned the police and had the police round. All logical solutions first, even if they're crazy far-fetched. Just rule those out. Rule those out first, and then you can go to, yeah, it's a ghost. Not that I don't believe you. I fully believe you that there's some kind of ghost here, but you know, for my own peace of mind and for the peace of mind of a baby in the house, make sure there's nobody just living in the walls, lurking in the attic. You know? My cot was placed in the hall, but my mother checked it only to find my pillow was torn right in half. Finally, a priest was called to Gladstone Villa. His name was Graham Jones. He blessed the property. "Begone, demon, and dwell in your appointed place. Leave this house and the family alone." He then said a prayer, and before he left, he said, "Watch the baby," which was me. All right, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So, it's a ghost. It's clearly not someone living in the walls. It's clearly a ghost, some kind of entity or spirit or whatever. You guys do what you think is the logical thing. You call in a priest to have the priest come bless the house. Now, this is a thing that a lot of people do, and it seems to never be a good idea. It seems like calling in a priest to perform a blessing or something like that on a place that is haunted always seems to make the activity worse. It seems to do nothing more than just piss off whatever is living there. But let's forget that. The fact that the priest specifically came by and said to your family, "Watch the baby," indicates to me that he might have known a little something about a something going on there that he didn't fully share with you or with your family, that he wasn't very forthcoming about. What prompted him to say, "Watch the baby"? I need answers. I don't need sleep. I need answers. Is this priest still alive? Because I kind of want to look him up and ask him about it. According to my mum, it was quiet for a short while, but it returned with a vengeance, and this time started to show itself. Yep, called it. See, you bring the priest in for a blessing, everything seems nice. No, all you did was pissed it the fuck off. Now it's angry, as if it wasn't angry already. Trying to steal the baby, cut your pillow in two. What if your head had been on that pillow? Was it trying to kill you? Was it trying to kill you? Is that why you said watch the baby? Because it just now occurred to me. That you said your family came up to get you out of the master bedroom where your bed was. So you were lying in bed. They came up there to take you out of the room. They take you out of the room. And then presumably after that, they move your bed out into the hallway. And when they move your bed out into the hallway, that's when they notice that your pillow had been torn in two. What if your family had just left you there? What if your family had heard those sounds and just was like, no, it's nothing. It's nothing. What might have happened to you? Oh my gosh. Your head could have been torn apart instead of that pillow. That is horrifying. That's so scary. And I don't know why it only just hit me just now. Oh my gosh. As I got older, I too witnessed paranormal activity. I was aware of a presence, and when it was all quiet, I felt it wasn't there, but not too far away, just waiting, dormant. I saw poltergeist activity, brown coaxial cables being pulled from behind the television. I saw the light on the ceiling being pulled by an invisible force. I heard footsteps every night, sometimes during the day when we would all be watching telly. One of us would turn the TV down to hear the footsteps more clearly as it walked directly above us in the bedroom, and my grandfather Bill would point to the ceiling and say, "He's by there." My mother saw the full, solid figure of a monk dressed in a brown habit, but she didn't see the face as the hood was over his head. He just stood silently by the sofa while my grandmother Rita was on. We didn't see it as we were preoccupied by watching the telly, but she later described it to us. He was there for only a few moments. I never saw the ghost, but I heard it every day, and I told the locals and my friend at school. But I was bullied occasionally, and we had antisocial behaviour. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm so sorry to hear that. That's messed up. Kids are really cruel. Children especially are cruel. I am of the belief that all children are sociopaths. Like, I really do. I really feel like all children are sociopaths or psychopaths until they learn empathy. Like, kids are just vicious and cruel and mean until they learn not to be. So I'm so sorry that you had that. And especially as, you know, you're living through these weird things are happening in your home. You're trying to tell people about them. And they're just making fun of you. They're just bullying you. They're making fun of you. That's the worst. I hate that for you. I'm so sorry. A family friend was skeptical when we told her that it was haunted. I remember her going up to the bedroom and looking around the window and saying that it was the vibrations from the traffic outside causing the disturbance. But she soon changed her mind when she experienced it for herself. She suggested a local medium and the local press. It's a bit weird of a thing for a skeptic to do, that like a skeptic would send in the medium, or maybe she wasn't like an actual skeptic, but she was just skeptical that your place was haunted. I don't know. I don't know. It's not really clear here. The medium arrived. His name was John Matthews, and before he started asking the family questions, he began by challenging the spirit to perform by banging on the ceiling. Sure enough, the spirit immediately knocked back at him. John went into a trance. He tried to make contact, but failed to find out who it was. He later said, "There is definitely a presence here, and it's an earthbound spirit. It's got unfinished business." That's not great. That's not helpful. I don't like this medium. This medium just basically comes in and is like, hey, let me communicate with this spirit. The spirit bangs on the ceiling for him, and then he tries to talk to it, but he can't actually make a connection to talk to the spirit to do anything useful. So he's just like, oh, yep, no, there's definitely something here. It's an earthbound spirit. It's got unfinished business. Can't do anything else to help you. Best of luck, fam! And then he just pieces out. He just leaves. He just leaves like that. Like, he doesn't help you. Get rid of it. This guy. What did you say his name was? John Matthews. Shame on you. Shame on you. What a horrible medium. Shame. The activity wasn't exactly 24/7. And it was not as bad as what you see in movies. But we were so scared that we slept downstairs with the lights on. Yeah, no, I can definitely understand that. You know, movies about hauntings and stuff, they tend to make things really, really like crazy and fanatical and stuff like that. So I appreciate that you're not, you know, making any sort of wild claims like that. You're just kind of being realistic with what happened, and what happened is weird and creepy enough. Weird and creepy enough, certainly. But yeah, no, it would be scary. It would definitely be scary, especially if you're like a child, your family's sleeping downstairs with the lights on. We had the ghost for so long that my grandmother Rita called him Johnny as an amusement. That's funny. I really like your grandma Rita. I really like her. My grandma used to do the same thing with ghosts. She'd just give them names and start calling them by whatever name she felt like. You know, and I kind of picked up that habit too when I worked at that airfield that I worked at that was haunted. The ghost in Hangar 3, I just started calling him George. So I like your grandma Rita. She sounds like a lovely woman. She just starts calling the ghost Johnny as an amusement. So you hear the ghost upstairs stomping about or whatever he's doing, and I can just picture grandma Rita being like, "Shut up, Johnny! Shut up!" That's great. I love that so much. I don't know if she ever actually did that, but I love that so much. It definitely is a great way to try to bring a little bit of the fear and anxiety out of it, right? If you can kind of humanize what you're dealing with in some fashion. I love that. It's a great little coping technique. Your grandma Rita sounds phenomenal. We left Gladstone Villa in June of 1978. The property was converted into a hotel called Red's. The staff said they heard things there. Debbie, the barmaid, said she saw shadows in the bar. Her niece Jade saw lights going off and on. Another person witnessed the figure of an old man in the bar, and then he was gone. My mother returned to the property for a drink for her birthday and said she heard her name being called. When she looked, nothing was there. Don't like that. Don't like that. She returned. She knew it was haunted. She knew the place was haunted and she went back to the bar for a drink. She went back to the hotel for a drink. She knew it was haunted. I mean, I guess she was a little girl when they first moved in, so it was kind of like visiting home, that kind of thing. You know, I guess. I don't like your mum for going back there. I don't think that was a great idea of hers, sort of returning to the scene of the haunting. Do we have that? Do we have that as a rule? Don't return to the scene of the spookiness? I feel like we should. I feel like we should. So whatever. Rule whatever number we're on. Don't return to the scene of the spookiness. Don't return to the scene of the spookiness. Never do that. My father suffered a series of breakdowns after leaving Gladstone Villa, and he died in 1991 at the age of 44. Oh no. Oh no. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry to hear that. Your father died really young. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. That's the worst. That's the worst. But a series of breakdowns after leaving Gladstone Villa. I wonder if they're connected at all. I wonder if there's any sort of connection there. Either way, that's so tragic. I'm so sorry for you. I'm so sorry for your loss. Truly, I am. We were called liars by people that lived there before us, and that we were bonkers. But they lived there before I was born, before the activity started. This was a genuine experience that convinced a skeptic. People that said you were liars sound themselves kind of like jerks and assholes, and I kind of would dare them, like, hey, go spend a night at Red's. You think I'm lying? Go spend a night over there at Red's. We'll see who's bonkers then, won't we? But then again, I'm kind of standoffish like that. But yeah, I believe you that it was a genuine experience, and the fact that it convinced a skeptic as well, you know, that's nothing to sneeze at. Please Google the ghost of Gladstone Villa for more information about this. Yes, definitely do. Definitely do. You know, like I said, I originally found like a Reddit thread on it, but I have Googled it a little bit. I've seen that there's something on YouTube, a couple of things that I've seen. Very interesting to look into. Yeah, go Google the stuff. Go Google the ghosts of Gladstone Villa. Thank you sincerely, Andrew Dexter. Thank you so much for sending in this letter. I really appreciate it. I absolutely love this. I still think it's so crazy that I had just read about Gladstone Villa just a couple of days before you reached out to me. I almost wonder if that's Visago kicking in through mistletoe, having connections with me. Visago, are you doing stuff? Was that you? Are you? That would be pretty funny. But I really, really appreciate you sending in this story, telling me your first-hand accounts. If you would be interested, I would actually love, you know, to maybe sit down with you at some point, be able to ask you some more details, almost a little interview about your experience. I would love to do that. You know where to find me. You know where to find me. But thank you so much for sending this in, and I believe you. I do.